What's up, HyperFast Nation? On this episode of the show, I sat down with a serial real estate entrepreneur. He has been an agent, a flipper, a developer, and now he is building a company called Del Norte that is building a technology to tokenize real estate deeds. Welcome to the show, Anton Glotser. Welcome to the show today, Anton. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing amazing as well. Thank you so much for being on the HyperFast show today. We've got a lot of great stuff to talk about. What you're doing. You're to my knowledge the only company in the world that is doing what you're doing with regards to tokenization of real estate and title and deeds, which is exciting. Probably scary too for for different people in the industry. But before we jump into that, give us a little bit of background about yourself and how you got to this point in your life where you're the only company doing what you're doing.
So my background initially was in real estate. I actually got into real estate right out of college back in 2005, back when you could get ninja loans. I'm sure some of you might remember those.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
for the younger people listening, that's no income, no job, no asset.
yeah.
They used to
If you had a pulse, the
like
bank
that.
would give you money for a house, and a second mortgage, and sometimes even a third for the same property.
Yeah.
So
And they had the negative amortization
yeah,
option too. I remember those where you could actually pay a minimum balance and minimum payment, and your balance would go up monthly on your mortgage.
yeah, exactly. Kind of like a credit card, and
Yeah.
so about 3 months after I got out of college, with $100,000 in investment that I earned and saved from college, I ended up having like $3 million worth of real estate in New Jersey, 6 properties, and I was doing fix and flips, and I was doing the last 2 I did were actually knockdowns and building brand new properties, and then I didn't know what I was doing back then, so I got caught up in the whole collapse and ended up losing everything. so.
Easy come, easy go.
Yeah,
Huh?
exactly. So then I moved to Florida and started doing fix and flips over there. Now, between that time, I actually also worked as a consultant for Crescent Heights, which is that time was the third largest real estate developer in the country, in the U.S. And they did they were doing stuff internationally. They're all over the U.S. They've done billions of dollars in real estate. And one of the things that I learned back then is that when you leave the U.S., it's especially in the developing world, it's very, very difficult to figure out who actually owns the property. Especially like we worked in Mexico and in India, and they spend in India like millions of dollars just on paperwork, just to figure out who actually the property belongs to before we can buy it. So that's kind of when I learned about the real estate issues with titles and deeds that go on in most of the planet, really. So then I got back into fix and flips, after the collapse. Did really well back then. Then I kind of moved back to New York, became a broker over there, did a lot of real estate deals. I was an investor, got into mortgage notes, was a landlord. I kind of still am right now. I don't own that many properties. I sold them all to start this business 5 years ago when I learned about NFTs. I also started, dating my current wife, who is Honduran, and I ended up moving to Honduras. And over there, it's like, at least in Central America, it's probably one of the worst places for real estate fraud. Like up to 20% of real estate over there is fraudulent. The transactions mean. So I, figured out that if I can put deeds and titles on the blockchain, that'll solve a lot of those issues. And after living there and working there for quite some time, like 4 years, I ended up getting a government contract with the country. Then I lost that contract, and then I got another contract. too. And then I got a contract in El Salvador, and now I'm in Mexico as well. And I'm about to get in Guatemala and Costa Rica. So
lots of different government contracts, and what
So
specifically are these for the people that maybe aren't in this
yeah, yeah.
world, this part of real estate?
So as you know, wherever you are in the world, including the U.S., um, your deed is a piece of paper. Uh, in those in America, we have title insurance. Outside of America, there is no title insurance. So if you buy a house in El Salvador, Honduras, and Costa Rica, and whatever, there is a chance that that piece of paper can be fraudulent, or there's a chance that somebody else can take that piece of paper, go to a notary, change the name, get it notarized, get it filed, and now he owns your house. And that happens quite a lot. Uh,
Really?
yes.
Their house stolen.
Yeah,
Wow.
no, that actually is very, very common. In fact, if you know people who have land outside of the United States, in South America or Africa or Asia or even Eastern Europe, that's a pretty common thing that happens. So by taking that piece of paper and making a digital copy, an NFT version of it on the blockchain, means that nobody can do that anymore, or at least without your knowledge and your permission. It's very that simple. It's really that simple. So you get an application in real time. You can see your deed on the blockchain. If somebody interacts with it, there is a history of transaction because that's how blockchain works. Nothing is deleted. Everything is just added on. So
And so you're marked somehow as the owner of this asset on the blockchain, and then no one no one can change that
so the
without you taking action, without you doing it, I
so the
guess, right?
government issues you an NFT copy of your deed that's stored on the
Okay.
blockchain. They stamp it with a proprietary stamp technology that we developed. It's a digital stamp that encrypts, a variety of data. It stores it on the blockchain, and now going forward, all of the transactions, because they recognize the blockchain transactions equal to the paperwork ones, the blockchain effectively supersedes the paperwork because you can't defraud it. And if you do a paperwork
Right.
transaction, you have to have an identical one recorded on the blockchain. So you can only go one way, not backwards.
Do you think this will come to the U.S.?
Hopefully, I'm trying to bring it to the
Yeah.
U.S. I've been endorsed by Mayor Suarez, which is mayor of Miami. I've been dealing with a lot of the state and the county governments here in Florida and
Right.
some of the other states. It's not easy, but I'm sure once we get over this whole banking situation that we're dealing with, they'll they'll be ready to take on this project. But it'll.
Do you think
Mhm.
it would, what do you think the implications are? Like if the U.S. went to this system, would that eliminate title insurance or
Um, so
change it at
basically,
least? I don't know.
the system does not prevent any issues from the past, but it prevents issues from the future. So it's like a prophylactic for title insurance. You know,
Okay.
so I don't think certainly not anytime soon will we get rid of title insurance in the U.S. But when we do convert it, it can increase the rate of transactions because everything is stored automatically and easily accessible. It'll get rid of a lot of the inefficiencies we have with the traditional paperwork system, and we have a lot of those. I mean, I bought a house, I bought some investment properties in Florida 2 years ago, and it was just an easy 1031, no mortgage, nothing. It took 3 months. Like, why?
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
it wasn't really even at the peak. It was like right before that. But yeah, it was. I've done not 100, but over 50 real estate transactions in the U.S. And it was always, even when we were buying cash, it was just a pain in the ass. Unless even just a regular closing. You sit there and there's like a pile of paperwork. Why
Yeah.
can't I do it all through an app? I mean, you can now. You have DocuSign, all
It,
that
it takes
stuff.
it takes a long time too to. I mean, this usually doesn't happen, but a cash buyer typically can't close for a week or or so. Like even if they wanted to move really fast, because the title search takes
forever.
like that long, right? It takes a few days, and the process is slow, even when there's not a mortgage involved, or at least slower than you think it could be.
Right, and then it takes like a month or two for the deed to actually show up in the county records.
Yeah.
And why is that? If it's on the blockchain, it's instant. So if it's instant, so by the way, Florida and specifically South Florida is has some of the highest rates of real estate fraud.
Yeah. Well,
Because,
Florida seems to have there's a lot of scammers and fraudsters
well,
there for
not just
some
in
reason. It's
Florida,
a
but we
great
have,
state, but
at least it used to be. I don't know about it, like I don't know the data from like last year, but before there was a lot of real estate fraud where people would, but during that time that it took recording, they would just go and like resell that property and just run off with the money. And it still happens.
so you think this will prevent that, or at least greatly reduce it?
So yeah, because as far as like fraudulent signatures on documents, they'll be completely preventable through the system. Again, because it's in real time, so if somebody does sign without your knowledge, let's say, their signature shows up, they have a timestamp, their a login stamp with their profile and everything, so you know exactly who did what, when they did it, how they did it, and there's no way to delete that information. Like, people
Yeah.
make mistakes, I get it, that's fine, but then you see all the history of mistakes. Right
Hmm.
now, I personally know a bunch of people who, here in the United States, a tax deed and tax sale. Like if you don't pay your taxes,
Yep.
the
Yeah.
county sells your house. So that is a lot of people, especially people who are not in the real estate space and don't know that specific area, they lose their homes. Like I have a friend, he got a divorce. His wife took his house. She didn't pay taxes. He took the house back 2 years later for the taxes. It's a real thing, but if it's
Yeah, no, we've definitely come across those deals and seen them,
mm,
and yeah, if you don't pay your property taxes, the county or local government will let other people pay it basically, and then
mhm.
they can foreclose on you, won't pay back, and take your house. So there's people that own their house free and clear, and
Yeah, doesn't matter.
forget to pay property taxes and lose it if they don't rectify the situation.
And there's a lot of, and it happens to a lot of elderly people because they forget the mail or the mail gets stolen or whatever, because the way they do it now, it is, yeah, it's certified mail, but it is just mail. And
Right.
then we know there's a lot of issues with that, with the blockchain. And, you go online, you log in, and there you go. And the other, and so for America is by far the best country when it comes to real estate data and when it comes to clarity of title, because we have title insurance and all that stuff. Even though we use a 100-year-old system, when you talk about anywhere outside of this country, especially like Asia, Africa, Middle East, I mean, they might have a civil war or whatever. You get out of that country, you come back, there's no record of you ever being there. If you,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, it's a real thing. If you ask anybody who escaped from Iran or from any of the Middle Eastern countries, they'll tell you, yeah, but you still own a bunch of land. Now we don't own nothing. But if it's on the
Hmm.
blockchain, it doesn't matter. You can be stripped naked, swim across the ocean, get to a computer terminal on the other side, boom, there's all your information. I mean, can the local warlord steal your stuff? Of course. But he can't change the data on the blockchain, so there's always a way to recover it. If you,
Eventually, when the order is restored, you've got a shot at getting it back.
yeah,
I guess
like
there's a record at least.
there's at least
It's
a record of it. I
indestructible.
mean, for example, in Mexico, the cartels steal a lot of properties from people. Now, when it's on the blockchain, they can still steal it, but you can go back to the data and say, hey, look, the name changed from this guy to from mine to this guy, but there's no financial transaction, which would have been normally recorded. They just changed the name, which makes it
Right.
fraudulent. Because why the hell would I give away my house? So there's a way to have some kind of accountability.
What do you think the challenges will be for you to get this system into more places?
Um,
Is it acceptance? Is it just bandwidth, building out staff? Like how,
I mean, right
you know?
now we're in the process of raising money for the company. Right, the biggest challenge for me personally is financial. I've gotten pretty good at being able to convince governments that what I'm doing is a good idea and will actually benefit them massively. I mean, for example, if you're a foreign investor, one of the reasons that developing countries stay developing and not actually develop is because foreigners are scared to go in there and invest. And the reason they're scared is because of the local fraud. You go and invest some
Hmm.
money, and if they steal it, the recourse is not. There's very limited recourse that you can do. Now, if you have data on the blockchain and if they abide by international regulations and world court and whatever, now that recourse and that ability to recover your stuff is much, much higher. And you have much more transparency. I mean, you have full transparency, actually. So you have security and investment.
What
Yeah.
yeah, if people want to learn more about, can people invest with you or on this,
Yeah, yeah.
or is it just governments?
No, no, no. It's anybody. I mean, we have another
Okay.
side of the business where we tokenize assets, which, like a lot of other crypto companies do that. And that's
Right.
that's pretty simple and straightforward. The only difference with us,
And is tokenizing assets, is that kind of like it's just replacing really what people maybe are doing with syndications or
it's
limited partner
yeah,
deals
it's it's
or different
it's
versions of that
automatic.
maybe?
It's automating that whole system. Like right now, if you go and syndicate, you make an LLC. A bunch of people invest in the LLC. The LLC buys a house, and now you guys are all stuck in that LLC until the house sells or pays you dividends or whatever. Uh, it's basically the same thing, just using new technology. There is, however, a slight difference with this tech, again, because it is this what we call it a smart certificate. It's like a special kind of NFT that we created and patented. It's interactive in real time, uh, more so than a traditional NFT. Um, so you can connect it to third-party networks in real time. So
Okay.
let's say there's an exchange that where you can trade your real assets. So you can invest in a house, you get a security of that house, a real estate over a real estate investment, but you still have the liquidity of a stock or actually even a crypto coin because you can take your share, put it on an exchange, and if there's a buyer, you can sell it. You can get out of that asset. So it's kind of like a true economy, because there's no way to bet against it. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
we,
No, it's,
yeah,
the implications of this are fascinating, and it's kind of exciting to see, and um,
and it's
I
legal.
think it's going to add more transparency, and
Yeah.
yeah. What are the best ways for people to get in touch with you if they want to learn more about what you're doing or just opportunities with you?
Well, they can visit our website. It's delnorte.io, and I can spell that. That's DELNORTE.io.
So go to
The
delnorte.io.
yes,
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today, Anton. This was exciting to hear the progress you're making in this area, and how people in these different countries now can get more protection on their land, and it'd be interesting to see it come to the U.S. and the implications for that. So it was a pleasure having you on this show
thank you.
today. Best of luck in your endeavors with El Norte, and once again, I appreciate you being on the show today.
Likewise, thank you for the opportunity.
And to all of our listeners and viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, if you want to learn more about Anton's company, you can go to delnorte.io. Please share this episode with other people that you think would be interested in learning about this as well. And we'll see you next time.
All right, thank you.